Throughout the Bible, God's people faced many enemies. Whether it was the Egyptians while the Israelites were slaves in Egypt, or the Romans who were hurting Christians in the New Testament. During the time of the United Kingdom, God's people fought with many different groups. One of the nations that comes up over and over again is the Philistines. Let's visit one of the cities of the Philistines and talk about why they didn't get along very well with God's people. Israel is not a very large country. In fact, in some spots, it's only about 40 miles between the Jordan River to the east and the Mediterranean Sea to the west. With such a small area, these two different nations were constantly trying to push each other out of the land and expand their own kingdom. My friend Jeremy and I were able to take a small plane and see some of these places from the air. While up there, we talked about the land where many of the battles between the Philistines and the Israelites took place.
Hot time, everybody can hear me, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
I think to understand a lot of the time of the United Kingdom, I think it's important to understand the geography as well. And of course, there's really no better place to do that than from the air. And so what we're going to do, Jeremy, is we're going to head over the Shpela, which was an area between the coastal plain and the hill country. It was the border area between the Philistines, who lived in the coastal plain, and the Israelites, which lived up in the hill country. There was not very many ways of getting from the Mediterranean Sea, for instance, up to Jerusalem. So those small valleys in the Shpela were extremely important.
Whoever controlled the valley controlled the access.
That's exactly right. And that just jumps out at you when you see it from this perspective.
The Israelites mostly lived in the land in the middle and eastern portions of the country, near the Jordan River, and the Philistines lived in an area on the coast. In the Bible, we read about the 5 Philistine cities: Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gath, and Ekron. This area was known as Philistia. Here are some of the ruins of Ashdod, although these are from a much later time period. Look how close the city was to the sea. The Philistines were seafaring people, which means they often traveled around by boat. However, they wanted to take over other parts of Israel, land where God's people lived. The Philistines did not worship God like the Israelites did, or like we do today. They worshiped idols, or false gods. One of their gods, Dagon, may have looked like a half fish, half man. Remember, the Philistines were people of the sea. We read many times in the Bible about the battles between the Israelites and the Philistines. In 1 Samuel chapter 4, the Philistines even captured the Ark of the Covenant after the Israelites took it into battle without God's permission. That didn't go well for the Philistines. God made their idol, Dagon, fall over and break, and made a lot of Philistines sick. Eventually, the Philistines sent the ark back to the Israelites on a cart pulled by 2 cows. Sometimes the Philistines lost to the Israelites, especially while David was king. But other times the Philistines beat back the Israelites. King Saul, Israel's first king, was even killed during a battle with the Philistines. So why is it important to study about these enemies of God's people? What can we learn? We can learn that God's people will always face enemies here on earth. While God doesn't call on us to go to battle or fight against these enemies as Israel was called to do, there will always be people who want to stand against or hurt the people who believe in God and follow the Bible. It's important that we don't become discouraged. Instead, we need to remember to trust in the God of the Bible, the true God, and if we follow Him, He will protect us against the enemies of today.